Welcome. Happy Tuesday to everybody. Welcome to Coming Home to You, a roundtable discussion where women and moms come together and share stories of their journey of coming home to themselves. Today, I have a beautiful, beautiful panel of beautiful souls with me today, and we're just going to take a couple minutes to introduce ourselves, say where we are in the world, and what we do in life. Um, so Leti, I have you first here, so I'll have you go first, and then we can just go around.
Thank
Welcome.
you. Thank you, Margarita, for the warm welcome and the invitation to be a part of this beautiful community where we just get to nurture one another and just share our light and our experiences. I'm Leti, and I am just outside of San Francisco and originally an East Coaster, but now I've been on the West Coast for about 10 years. Delighted to be here. My calling in the world is as a purpose coach, a growth coach. And so what that looks like is just really helping folks find the meaning and really grow into all that they are, really focused and anchored on their identity as always being the start, and really looking at ways in which, there's more fulfillment in our lives, whether it's in relationships, personal and professional. And yeah, as a person who has walked through the ups and downs of life, just realizing that my anchor has always been my decision to operate from my identity and my values, and that being my compass. That's where, I just feel has always been that source for me. And that's where we get to really that's how we find alignment in our lives. So for me, it's a joy to journey with people and remind them of their worth, their infinite worth, and to really walk shoulder to shoulder with them. And yeah, I look forward to the sharing and being able to share more about my own coming to home journey and living from that every day forward. So looking forward to all the sharing today.
Such important work you do. Thank you for being the light and the permission.
Mm.
All right. And Claudia, I'm going to have you go next because you're next on my windows here.
Hi. Hi, thank you so much for having me also. It's such a pleasure to be here. And I think an honor as well in many ways, because I think it's really beautiful to come together with four beautiful women that I don't even know. And for me, this is a really um, important aspect because I think that it's times like this when we create these containers that we really get to know one another. And I think being able to share the kind of things that we're going to talk about today, which means also allowing ourselves to be vulnerable and open and raw, and to be able to do that in a setting like this with people that you don't know intimately, I think is an honor and a pleasure for me. So I'm originally from London. I'm currently based in Hungary. I spent 30 years in education. I worked with a lot of students who had a lot of trauma stories and a lot of traumatic experiences. So lots of refugees and asylum seekers I worked with for 10 years back in the UK. I don't anymore. And so I think my purpose work was always within education. And then I just felt that I needed to expand on this, and I needed to do something more with the skills that I was learning through as an educator. I'm continuously being educated, and I've worn a few pairs of traumatic shoes myself. And once I went through my own trauma healing, which I did quite intensively over the last couple of years, then I really felt a very, very strong calling of sharing that and through my teachings. And so I don't like to use the word requalified. I extra qualified or extended my qualifications. And basically, I now work as a trauma healer coach and a clearance practitioner for clearing limited beliefs, which is my new baby. And it's a very exciting project, and it really enables me to like you said, Letty, to use your own experiences and your own knowledge of how to turn pain into power, basically. And it's a really wonderful thing when you see other people's lights glowing brighter. So it's a lovely thing, and I'm very, very grateful to be here. So thank you.
Claudia, I just got chills with everything you said. I love the pain into power, and trauma is such an important work to be doing. And I'm happy that you brought up limiting beliefs too, because that seems to be also the story that gets in our way, and we're the ones that hold on to that story, nobody else. So
Absolutely.
this is why it was so important for me to open this kind of platform so that
Hmm.
women can see themselves in our stories and say, I'm not alone, and be relatable, and then just take themselves on and be that light for themselves. So very important work that you're doing as well. Thank you for being here. Nadja, you're next, my love. You're next on my window.
So I love what you said about pain into purpose. I think you said is that what you said? Pain into
Power.
purpose.
Pain into power, but purpose is also good.
Pain into power, because I like to say that I support people turning their pain into paintings because I'm an artist, and that's the practice that I do. In the art world, whether you're familiar with it or not, there's artists that are doing commercial work for like focused on like their paintings are selling. There's artists that are doing commissions, painting for other people. I like to do paintings like Frida Kahlo did, where she's turning her pain into paintings, and they're universal alchemy. And I do a lot of inner work around being a divine instrument, around being an instrument, and just trusting that what wants to come through me when I clear my channel and I attune my instrument is divine and is intrinsically valuable. And I do a lot of work around what is value. Um, because I've been a full-time artist for 20 years. I've never had another job other than this. And so I've really done a lot of work around valuing my value and teaching others how to value their value, because as a divine instrument, you're bringing in divinity through your channel, and it can feel like a process that has a lot of limited beliefs, which is why we've got the starving artist archetype. So I'm here to be the abundant artist archetype and to stand for true value. And basically, I'm in a constant state of surrender and a constant state of learning from life. I don't think I've ever answered the question like, "How are you doing?" as like, "Great." Well, maybe I do, but the real answer is I'm learning from life. Like I'm just here to learn, and I'm here to share with other creatives and sensitive souls what I've learned so that it can be easier for them.
Mm. I got so many chills too. The value in your value. Wow, amazing. And I think that is where I am learning to lean into myself. And I love what you said about it being universal alchemy. Yesterday, my call for Spark Your Joy was alchemizing the heavy with joy, using joy as a transmuter. And I see art being your joy that is helping you transmute that pain. And it's one of the things that I'm bringing into the work that I'm doing, creative expression. And whether that be art, whether that be movement, dance, whatever it is so important to be able to find ways that work for you that allows you to be in that. It's not about choosing the pain or choosing the joy. It's about alchemizing them both together and seeing come together in a beautiful dance. And so speaking of dance, I'm so excited to have my friend Fancy on. Thank you, Nadja, for sharing such important work that you're doing. Fancy, last but not least, I'd love to have you introduce yourself.
Okay.
Hey, everybody. Thank you so much, Margarita, for inviting me to this. I feel really honored that you asked me. I didn't know what to expect, so I love to saying yes to things that are, I don't know what the outcome's going to be. So right now I'm just in that space of, well, my name's Fancy, first of all. And yes, speaking of dance, that's what I do in the world. I'm a professional belly dancer. I've been a performer for 25 years. And as of late, I've been working with the somatic healing element of dance and movement. So I had to evacuate my home during the wildfires in Topanga Canyon. And thankfully, my home still stands. And I'm here, yeah, after I was a domestic engineer for the last 5 years, working in my household and raising my teenage daughter in an alcoholic home. So I'm in recovery right now. So I'm working a program, and that is super transformational for me. So I've been getting closer to my higher power, my goddess. I work white magic. I consider myself a witch, a kitchen witch. I'm a white witch. I've been working with white light energy healing a lot lately, which comes from within from my dance. So I'm kind of incorporating the healing through dance, somatic healing, knowing where my body needs to release the energy, the trauma, the pain. And like you said, transmuting, alchemizing the pain through movement and then releasing it. So that's what I've been really working with. And yeah, that's about it. So happy to be here. Thank you so much.
I love that I learned something new about you today.
What'd you learn?
You're a white light magic witch, and you use that for your healing. And I love that you're transitioning your dance into, it's always been purposeful for you, but I really see it being and rising into the light that it's becoming. You really just leaning in to the power that that has. And I loved joining your belly dance classes. And there are times I walk around and I still shimmy, 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 and I really feels opening. I get tingles in my body every time because it's the sign that energy is moving. And I feel a lot of us, for me, my experience is we all hold a lot of trauma in our hips. So it's so beautiful the work that you're doing there, making sure that women are moving their hips so that we can keep moving and releasing whatever that trauma is for the day. So with that, I just want to say thank you again so much for being here. You guys are such beautiful souls doing such amazing work and being the permission to shine your light. So with that, I just wanted to I think in this moment, I just want to let everybody know that this is more than a roundtable, right? It's a movement that I want to create. It's a movement that we're all, I think, doing in our lives. We're all in some way creating our own movement that is authentic to us. And that is why it's so important that I want to showcase the women in the world that are showing up, that are even despite of the lifing and the little things that happen here and there, because it does. Things happen, things come up. And so I think it's an important discussion of what it is that we do to come back home to ourselves, what it is that the conversations that we have with ourselves and how we shift. Because the important thing is knowing that you can shift, and it's, for me, it's like, how long are you willing to sit in that poop scoop before you say, hey, I'm better than this? Like, there's a lesson here, just take on that lesson. And I think a lot of times it's just to remind us that we're not staying focused in our path and our true purpose. And it's life's little nudge of like, are you sure you want happiness? Because I'm going to throw some things that are going to make you really sad so that you can really appreciate what happiness feels like, to really be in the fullness of happiness. And I think if we can see life as those little nudges of reminders, it could be a lot easier to navigate. And so I hope people listening out there really take themselves on and just acknowledge where you are without judgment or criticism. I think it's important just to be neutral about it. Give yourself some grace. Take a breath, because breath is our ally. It's the one thing we have full control of. So with that said, I just want us all to ground in this room together with a deep breath. Ground, set your intention for today's call for yourself and for the people that are watching. And as you hold it at the top, just allow that guidance from above to shine a light, to give you the wisdom. And as you release, just let go of the day, let go of yesterday, let go of anything weighing you down so that you can be present in this moment with us today with an open heart. Take one more deep breath in and really just sigh with release. And I hope everybody watching is doing this breath with us as well. All right, so yes, so here we are, the permission to be fully seen and fully heard and fully expressed. This is the purpose of this today. So we're going to start with our first question. And I lost where that is. Here we go. All right, so the first question is the moment of truth. And I'll ask you, can you share the moment when you realized you were no longer willing to abandon yourself or play small? Is there a moment that you can remember? A lot of times I think it's a lot of moments, especially when you're in the path of doing that. So anything that recently comes up or like the biggest moment that showed up in your life that you were just like, I am not going to abandon myself anymore and play small. Nadja?
The moment that came up to me, I knew that I would be talking about my solo trip to California. And the moment that came up for me was I was on this trip. It was a 3-month trip, and I was really called to the Redwood Forest in California. I live in Florida. And my ex-husband and I were going through a lot of challenges, and I was, in a sense, like mourning that we were going to be breaking up, but I wasn't totally sure. So I went to California to find myself, to put my center of gravity back in myself versus in him or in our relationship, and recall that. And I remember I was driving through Big Sur, and I think it was my first time that I had ever been there. Oh, I'm spotlit. Okay. And I remember feeling really frustrated, internally frustrated, kind of angsty, and that's not an unfamiliar feeling for me. And I remember pulling over onto the soft shoulder where you can view things, and I just was called to this like really precarious little pathway down to the water. Like it was very precarious. I did not have the proper footwear at all. My shoes were like Nike running shoes. They were not traction, like not the kind of traction that's required to go down a precipice like this to the Pacific Ocean, like crashing up. But the moment that I remember feeling that I've got me, like my parents don't know I'm here, my husband didn't know I'm here, my friends, my sisters, I felt as if I was disconnecting all of the cords that made me someone else's, like a role of someone else's, like as if they were propping me up all my life. And this was a moment where I was like, I've got me, like I've got me. And it wasn't he's got me or she's got me or they've got me. Like I had never traveled by myself before. This was the opportunity where I was the only one that was really aware that I am the only one that really, really has got me. And I went on this little pathway down, and I remember finding a spot and the waves were crashing up, and I was just free flowing, like everything that was coming out of my mouth. I was hearing it for the first time. I wasn't planning it. It was full improv prayer. I was hearing myself, and that I will never forget that whole interaction. And I remember going back up to my car, and it was as if I was like plugged in a different way than I had been before, because I had returned to me without all of the cords that both propped me up, but also allowed me to deplete my power. Like, just allowed me to be like, well, she's got me. Like, it was just like, and my consciousness was really potent and present inside my being. And yeah, that's a moment for me that I'll never forget.
Wow. I love what you said about you knowing that you're the only one that truly has your back, that you got your back. That's powerful. Thank you for sharing. Anybody else?
So I'd love
Oh,
to follow up. Or Claudia, feel free.
no, go ahead. Go ahead.
Yeah. Okay.
There's plenty of time for us all.
Beautiful. So, so many little moments, Margarita, right? That as you said, is there a defining moment? But, I'm gonna say the first moment where I started, I think that just following my voice and standing in my power and being fully vulnerable, that first moment that I can reflect, I would say was just after college, where I was doing deep work with a therapist and really looking at some childhood pain with the freedom of having, gone to college and had been away from family. And of course, I was blessed to have a very deeply nourishing, united family. But, as is often the case, that there's a lot there, in the most loving and supportive environments, one can experience trauma, right? And so I remember for most of my life having actually that dealing with the heaviness and the joy, right? Like the joy of being in a supportive family environment, and then also having to deal with some childhood sexual trauma that was not ever, that was kind of kept secret, right? And I remember it really, like, there were, as I was in college, started, dealing with that as an adult, as a young adult, and realizing that, I need to get myself care because, I'm not whole. And of course, once I leave the nest, it's part of the journey, right? It's like you have that freedom, you have that physical space to really grow into your next, beginning, like to really experience life for yourself. And so I remember, yeah, there was a point in my therapeutic process where I was like, I am not living in authenticity. I'm very much in this place of, um, fragility. And it's this false self, right? Everyone sort of would see this false self. And um, it was during really the therapeutic process that I realized, all throughout, while I was loved by my family, I realized, and they, I realized that I did not come to terms with my pain, and being open to sharing that in a therapeutic process allowed me to also see the strength and the way that journey of surviving. um I was like ready for that next phase, right? I was ready for that, the ability to really like speak to family about that, right? Having that difficult conversation, because I knew that regardless of the outcomes, I still loved, my family. I still loved and was grateful for yeah, just their loving support, and realized it gets to shift, and I get to have my voice heard, and I get to have a piece about it so that I can grow into who I am and show up with that authenticity. So yeah, I think for me what started it was in therapy, and then just that journey of faith since then.
Mm, that's beautiful. I love that you brought up authenticity and fragility and also the false self. So I think, for me, what I heard was people pleasing, not wanting to look bad, all the things that we do to not be authentic, to just fit in and not be judged or criticized. And we don't realize that we're not doing a service to ourselves, because authenticity is the highest vibration that we could live in. And it's a power, it's a superpower. So thank you for sharing. All right, Claudia, I think you had your hand next.
But yes, thank you. So I think it's really lovely. I can resonate with lots of things that have already been already been said. Mine kind of came in stages. So I brought my kids up alone, and my son is neurodiverse, and he also has developmental challenges, and I also battled addictions throughout this pathway. And there were, also I worked in education for 30 years, for 3 decades, and it's a very giving, it's a service industry. But I realized that I use my career, and I have a very successful career. I buried myself in there, and I used it to escape everything. And I ended up working in a very, very toxic environment. And and I'm over 50 now, and of course, my biggest fear, or my biggest anxiety, has always been about providing security, particularly for my son, but for both of my children, actually. And but I could just feel myself, I was just giving so much of my power away, and you know, I had no light, like no light at all in the end. And it got to the point where I would go to work and I would be absolutely fine, and I'd sit in the car park and I'd start crying, and I just didn't even want to go in there. And it was just all consuming. And so one day I left. I just handed in my notice. And this was a really traumatic thing, because I really believed that my whole identity was as an educator, and that's who I am, and that's all I am. And I don't know what else I can do. And of course that's not the case, because the minute I made that move, then obviously the lights all came on, and I was blessed to get another job. But I ended up, so this is it, the universe sends you the same lesson in another guise, when we don't learn it, back in a similarly toxic environment. And I was abroad, and one day I just went, I don't want to do this anymore. So I booked myself a plane ticket and I went home, and I thought, and it's like you said, Nadja, I realized at that moment that I'm fully prepared to lose this new job. I'm fully prepared to go back to zero with nothing. But I have me, and something in me said, it's okay, you can do this. You need to do this. And this was the beginning of me standing in my power and standing up and saying, no more, no more. Thank you. No more. Thank you very much. But I've had more than enough to eat now. And so these two things, these were really pivotal points for me, because they were both situations where essentially I could have ended up with nothing, no security, no income. There's only me. I'm still responsible for my son. He's 26, and he's, bless him, he's very capable, but he's never going to have financial freedom. And didn't matter. It's like, you know what? We've been homeless. We've had no money before. We're back on our feet. We'll get back on our feet again. And that, I think, those were the two pivotal moments. And then all the lights came back on.
Wow.
So.
Yes, I love that. There was something you said that really stood out for me, and that was that life has a way of showing you lessons till you learn them. And then,
Oh,
right?
yeah.
And then also you were losing yourself in your work as a way of avoiding
Mhm.
that thing that you didn't want to look at. So it's so often I find me was doing that a lot. Whether it's work, working out, uh, some kind of addiction, whatever it is, I think a lot of times it's easier just to kind of disappear and not handle it, because we don't, I didn't feel equipped to be able to handle it until I really was like, wow, this is a superpower. Just being able to
Mm.
love the shadow side of yourself. There's
But I think
power
a
in,
lot of women do.
yeah.
We battle with that as women as well. Can we have it all? can we really have it all? And then, no, we can't. Of course we can't. Something's got to give. And then we're like, yeah, of course we can. We can, but we have to find that balance, like you said. Yeah.
Balance. Tricky word, that balance. All right, Miss Fancy.
Hi. So, yeah, I was thinking like, as I'm listening, of course, but I'm thinking like, okay, what was a defining moment? So I'm just gonna try to, I definitely have taken a lot of things resonated with everybody from being in California to, coming to California when I was 19, that calling of like, I need to be somewhere in a different space to kind of find myself and begin my journey. Um, so that was part of my breaking free and breaking out into, who I needed to become was getting here to California. And that's been like, and I came when I was 19 and I haven't left. So I'm like, yeah, I'm from the East Coast too. So, but just to get present, like that defining moment for me when I really stepped into like, oh my God, what has been happening, what I've been trying to get to. I had little glimpses of it here and there all through my 20s, 30s, 40s, was when my dog was diagnosed with heart failure. And I realized, this is going to be like probably one of the hardest things that I've ever gone through. As far as like loss goes and stuff, because my parents are still alive. I've never had anybody like really close to me pass away. So getting that news kind of literally broke me out of what had been my codependency on my relationship with my ex-partner, and realizing that I had put so much stock into finding myself through men. And that was my addiction. Love is my addiction. Like finding my spiritual self through that, and that comes with like an absentee father, neglect and stuff from childhood. So just realizing that I was going to have to go through this alone, that's what made me realize, but I can go through it alone because I have me. And that was the defining moment for me. So I'm still on that real fresh, tender, um, you know, realization. But every day it's like it's getting stronger and stronger and stronger. And so yeah, stepping into my power and really kind of getting into the divine feminine, which is my work as a light practitioner of magic, and finding that magic within myself, knowing that has always been there, and just I've worked it and used it, but not with consciousness. So being conscious of light working and knowing that it's like I've always had that, I've always been working with that. So now I feel like, okay, so I need to work with the divine feminine and the divine masculine, because that's what we are here to do, is to not to complete us, but to break open and crack open that duality of what we're kind of all seeking, here on this mortal coil, if you will. It's like we're all seeking that love, we want love, we are love. So just getting into that state of there's one way of being, and that is in a state of, like, love is not a feeling. Like understanding what love actually is has been like the biggest eye-opening experience for me, especially just in the last few months after leaving a toxic, abusive uh, relationship that I was in for 16 years. Was like huge, just leaving. Like I had to leave. And I was able to do it because I trusted in myself. I trusted in my higher power. I trusted in the love that I knew was waiting for me, and it's always been there. So being in that state, knowing that love is a state of being, and that I have a never ending wellspring of love, no matter what, like, because I have myself and I have my divine downloads is what I call it. Like I get the information from a higher sense of self, a higher self. Um, that's yeah, so that's where I'm at. So yeah, that's how I got here.
Wow. You had so many beautiful, like I took so many notes of everything you said, and something that stood out for me was having the conscious intention. And that's something that I've learned through my journey is that intention is 100% everything in what you do. If you have something that you want to do, but your intention is really not to create the results, then you're going to create exactly what your intention. If you like look back and see what was that my actual intention, that I actually intend to create the result that I wanted. And I loved too what you said that love is not a feeling, it's a state of being, and that we are love. And that's so true. And so thank you for presencing that in this call today. It's 100% the most important thing to recognize about ourselves, that it's not something. The other thing I heard you say too was that the codependency, on a kind of needing validation from others to feel your worth, to find your value. And I resonate so much with that because up until now, that is where I've been operating, is waiting for others to tell me if what I'm doing is good enough or if I'm good enough and if I'm worthy of your love. And what I was not doing was giving myself the permission to give myself the love, give myself the self-care, give myself the attention and the value and worth that I know I have inside. And so thank you so much for sharing that. It's so important that we do shine a light in that because we, as Nadja also said, we are our first line of defense, that we have our own back. So we're the only one that's going to give us the unconditional love if we just really, truly honor ourselves. We're not broken. We came into this world whole. And it's just reclaiming those parts of ourselves that we abandoned many years ago. That's why inner child work is so important, like Leti was sharing, like really coming back into recognizing that she's going into the world now and feeling not herself. So, in a sense, lost, right? And so, reclaiming those parts meant facing the shadows, facing that thing that nobody wanted to talk about,
Yeah.
right? Anything come up that anybody wants to share before we go to the next question? Just want to keep this organic and beautiful. I
Yeah.
think it's an important
I
discussion.
think on that note as well, so we sweep things under the rug, and the body and the mind has a wonderful capacity to eradicate memories and put them away, and then you grow up knowing that there's something. I also discovered a childhood trauma, a sexual trauma as well, actually, that I beautifully tucked away through energy healing work. And when I realized that, and again, we get these downloads, as Fancy mentioned, when we're ready to deal with them, so we're always being looked after. So we don't always get given this information when it's going to break us. It's when it's going to crack us open. I love that expression. Um, you know, it made so much sense. Suddenly I was like, oh my God, now I understand why I was always looking for love in the wrong places. Or this is why I always gave away my power. Thought that, a relationship with somebody else was going to be the answer to everything. And it was never about that. It was always about having a relationship with myself, And so this is so lovely because we're all telling one another's story, and probably everybody who's listening too. So, yeah.
Oh,
And I love also, Fancy, how you were sharing, that you presence that, yes, that was a moment, or that first defining moment, but isn't it a continuum, right? As long as we have breath in our lungs, there's always deeper wells of healing. Where when I started the journey in my 20s with the help of, a professional counselor, and then so many other ripple effects and people, that I recognize my higher power being God just put in my life to help me along. Like, what's the next level of healing in that space? And 100%, it led me to, as Margarita presence, really like my higher power, that love never left, right? So while my parents, or family members, their love may have been conditional, and I can say that with 100% love for them, but realizing that, like, it this is far greater, and that love that supports us, that love of our creator, right? And that love has always been unconditional. And so I've learned that my deepest growth has been when I've realized just how immeasurably loved I am by my creator. And that relationship just has helped me with that next level of healing. And healing, I've learned, um, the acronym, or one acronym, I suppose, is helping energy align with love. Love is how, I just think of the origin and in my own, values and identity, as a Christian woman, is right. Love is the beginning and the end. And love is always the part of the lesson in our next level of growth. Like, you know, and to me, I just see it as like, yeah, love is 100% a beingness and such a force for healing, so yeah, it really resonates, because even today, and I know we'll talk a little bit about, even the challenges of today, it's always an opportunity to deepen in that love journey and that healing journey.
Mm,
Mhm.
I love that.
So beautiful.
I love the healing, helping energy aligned in love, acronym for HEAL. Definitely writing that one down. Okay,
Oh,
loved it. So as we move on, the next question I want to ask you all is the moment where you're remembering who you are. So what were some of the things you did to reconnect with your true self? I know, Nadja, you're probably like, I painted it all the way down. I painted my own brick road to get there. What is I guess maybe you can go deeper in sharing like the process that you do when you create your art. But yeah, so if anybody wants to go first, what were the first things that you did to reconnect?
When I got out of a long-term relationship in my 20s, and I was struggling a lot with like kind of finding where I wanted to go with what led me out here was acting. I was like, I want to act, I want to model, I want to be famous, and I know I'm going to find love out there, because I never wanted to get involved with anybody in my hometown in Pennsylvania, because I was like, I'm not going to end up married in a trailer with kids, barefoot and pregnant and all that, so um there was a shift after this first love kind of experience and this very tumultuous, passionate relationship with this man, um, that I didn't really know where to go. I was kind of like, well, I could go here, I could go there, and then I went to a restaurant. I had gone to a restaurant and I saw this woman belly dancing, and it took me a while. It took me like a year or two, and I was like, that's what I want to do. I want to get in touch with that woman, because my mom had belly danced when I was a little girl, and I had taught myself how to belly dance. I've always been a dancer and a performer, and I love just being in my body. Um, so I was like, that's what I want to do. So after that breakup and kind of like, okay, I got to take a different kind of turn. Um, so I contacted this woman and I just started taking belly dancing lessons. And it was just like, it was so like connected with who I was and who I am in my spirit, in my, just putting me into something that was all mine. And I knew it was like, this is for me. And I went for it. And I put myself through school. I put myself through college. I got an English literature degree. And I was like, okay, I'm going to teach. I'm going to be a teacher. Because that was another little dream that I had when I was, speaking of being an educator. When I was a child, I was always inspired by my teachers and learning, and I have a love of reading and writing. So I put myself through school, as a professional belly dancer. And I was like combining these two like passions that I had as a child, like growing up, and I was doing them as an adult. So that was like this real spark of like finding who I really was without a boyfriend, without a man, without, being in a relationship. So that was like really this long commitment to myself and what I wanted to do and what I was passionate about. And um yeah, so those were, finding like what I could do that I loved, that brought me joy and money and income and like supporting myself. So I lived on my own. I didn't have roommates. I lived by myself for 10 years, and I put myself through school, and I was so proud of myself. Like I went back to college at 28 years old, and yeah, and then I started teaching belly dance, and then I started teaching English, and I got a job, and I was, so, and then I got into another relationship and I had a baby. So I was like, okay, now I'm a mom now. So there's, that period of growth in my 30s and 40s was just like, wow, like so much wild, amazing stuff happened with finding my purpose, finding my joy, finding my passion. Of course, I experienced a lot of pain and stuff too, but for the most part, I was like really just grooving through life. And then I have this family, this beautiful daughter, and so life has been very good to me when I look back on like how my guide, how my goddess, how my spirit guide has been taking care of me and showing me these pathways of like, okay, now you can do this, and just trusting, and really just trusting in myself to get me to where I need to be. Like I'm always going to be supported, and knowing that the universe is always going to throw me a net to fall into, and just being in gratitude a lot for like, wow, I can like move my body, I have a good brain, I'm just I have this capacity to love, I have this beautiful daughter. And it was, yeah, so those were like defining moments of what led me to this shift in where I'm at now. So yeah, that's it.
Beautiful.
Moving through life, trusting that Goddess has your back and is going to catch you.
Yeah.
Love that.
Mm.
So true. Anybody else want to popcorn next?
Thanks for letting me share, guys.
Yes, thank you. That was beautiful.
I love that you talk about these, signs and life being good to you, because I think also I can say exactly the same, but it took me a really long time to see the signs or to recognize the signs. So I was never inspired by my teachers. If my teachers knew I'd become an educator, they'd probably have heart attacks. But so I became a single mom, and I got to a point where it was like, God, people just talk about nappies and sleep and no sleep, and I wasn't getting any sleep, and I was terribly frustrated. And I went back to college, and someone gave me a leaflet to see if do I want to go and do a teacher training course. And so first day of teacher training, I fell in love. It was like teaching has been the love of my life, and it saved me many times. And so I always say I'm an accidental teacher, but um, you know, then I got a calling to move to another country, and then and I got all of these callings, and these callings always came when I was at the lowest point in my life. These were, the life jacket, or the life ring that was being thrown to me to get me out of a situation. But then the biggest wake up call for me was last year when I was at my father's funeral alone. And then you stand there and go, okay, I'm 53, I'm at my father's funeral alone. Okay, there's something not quite right. There's something not quite aligned here, and my mom would always say, you've created this wonderful career. Can you not apply that to your personal life as well? And, I'd be like, no, clearly not. And this is what I couldn't see. I couldn't get out of this fog. And then I had a lot of loss last year. I lost, so my partner and I separated. My daughter and I separated for a period of time, and I was alone. And then I realized I'm just kind of living some sort of existence. And I had two choices: to break down or to break free. And I just made that decision that I want to experience life and stop living a life experience, basically. And then that's what really got me on the path of my own trauma healing journey, really. And I discovered Ho'oponopono, and I'd already kind of played with tapping, and I say played with because I wasn't really sure what it was. And then so I thought, okay, let's find out what this really is, and it's wonderful. So then I became a hypnotapping practitioner. Um, Meditation and grounding has always been my, just spending time in silence, and then acknowledging the power that we have inside of us and the strength that we have inside of us. And I've always had a very strong relationship with the moon. And then one day I just realized, because the moon is always calling me to say, look to the light, and that light is within me. And this was what I didn't see. And then so now, I mean, every day I check in with my light, basically. And it's now become a daily practice that I check in with my own personal light twice a day to see if it's shining brightly, and if it's not, then why is it not? And this self-reflection, it's a lifelong learning journey, but it's something that brings me home all the time. Like, where is my own light, and how dim or bright is my light today, really? So, and these are the things that bring me back to myself every day. So,
I love that.
I love that. I love that you presence also the holistic healing modalities like tapping, meditation, and something that really stood out for me is sitting in the silence. It's so, for me, for the longest time, it was really hard to do that, because
mm,
meditation, you think it's supposed to look a certain way, and there are people who are like, I can't get the monkey mind to stop talking. And sometimes it's just about letting, like, not being judgmental about that, right?
yeah,
Like,
let
let
it
those
talk.
thoughts come. Yeah, let them come, and then just let them go. Don't look at them with any particular lens. Just let them go. There's something, there's a message there for you.
Yeah. Or even listen to them. And this I also learned, to listen to those, listen to the mind, and why is it overthinking, and what is it trying to tell me? Because I think quite often a mind tries to distract us, and then we have to say, okay, not now, this is not your time. But there are times when there are reoccurring things, it's like, okay, maybe in meditation, like, not pay attention to it, but listen to it. And that's a very difficult thing to learn, or it was for me. Um, and then put it in a bubble and yeah, let it disperse. So yeah, I think meditation is different for many different people, but holistic, I think everyone has to find their own pathway of coming back to themselves. And you know I
Yeah,
think
and
dance is
sometimes,
a lovely thing, but it's not something that everybody will or can do. And art, I'd love to, but I've accepted and surrendered to the fact that I didn't get that gene.
well, I also believe, meditation can come in forms of creativity where I know that when I get dancing, I feel like I get in a flow, meditated, like there's nothing that I am thinking or worrying about. I'm just in the moment and being present. And I think it allows me to listen to my body, what needs to move, what needs to be released, what am I feeling? And I think that's really just the intention of meditation, is just to kind of come home back to you, like, what is your body saying? Your body is always speaking to you. So just honoring our divine feminine goddess within us and the masculine. It's great to have both. I think sometimes people are like, "Hey, don't call me masculine." I was like, no, we need the balance, right? The masculine is the protecting, and then the feminine is the wisdom and the knowledge and the love. And It's important to have a balance of both. Thank you for sharing.
Thank you for allowing me to.
Yes.
I'd love to pop in next about ways in which I'm nurturing and continue to nurture my coming home to me. So much of what you shared, Claudia, too. I think for sure it is like a collection of things, right? For for me, it's prayer. It's reading sacred scripture. It's God and community, right? And what I mean by that is, like I think when we started, someone shared that they're in this place of like surrender. That is like the most beautiful place to live because it really gives us this sense of just an openness, an openness to what possibilities, the listening, Claudia, as you were sharing, because so often our existence, there's demands, there's limitations in terms of the days, etc. But to really be grounded, for me, what grounds me is my relationship with my creator. Like I love, Claudia, you were sharing about yeah, being out in nature, your relationship with the moon and that light. And I feel like that is precisely what anchors me is my relationship with my maker and all the beautiful things that have been um, created for to help us to nurture us to I mean I as often as I can I like to move my body not just indoors but outside because there is an energy, there is a vibration that is just to have the sun radiating or to feel the wind or to me it's deeply spiritual and I just take that in. I mean, I just can't compare like, when I'm in the fitness center, which I love, a really good sort of high intensity workout. There's a place for that. And there's also this sort of place for being out in nature and moving your body, or whether it's through a dance, dancing, singing. But I feel that these are the tools, right? These are the different, I guess, the collection of tools that really ground me and also community, ladies. Like I mean, when I think about the strength that comes from being in a supportive and loving community, right? Not just filling your time with people. There's also a space for yes, definitely, place for silence and meditation and prayer, coupled with being in community, because often what we're going through, we can be encouraged by others and encourage others. And boy, has God used that in my own healing journey, is just to, when I was a first time mom and having difficulties, breastfeeding or learn, whatever. Like I remember the power of community and how God would heal me through these, yeah, through conversations I would have or communities that I get to grow with. So, I have another acronym that I love that I learned, right? Love to read and love to always expand um, the resources that I have for myself and to share with others. And the word trust, I've learned to see it as like it really is totally total reliance upon spiritual timing. So for me, trust and surrender has always been my anchor to like total reliance upon spiritual timing. Spirit is everything. Spirit is within me, it's within each of us. And I just, I surrender to that. And when, there are things that wreck me, they wreck me for moments, right? Because then I get to really be anchored that I get to trust and surrender that this will serve me. Whatever circumstance, whatever resources I need, they will come. And so, but all of that I think is just nurtured by my relationship with my creator and my time in prayer, my time in, sacred scripture. It's just a wellspring, as Fancy was sharing. It's a wellspring of love for me, and it's never ending. And there's always, always all the support I need.
Wow. Yes. Trust, total reliance upon spiritual timing. That gave me chills because it's so true. A lot of times it's like even just learning to trust yourself was hard for me, trusting myself. And community is something that I crave for. I grew up, especially being Latina, where it's always family, it's community. Every weekend we would get together and do, carne asadas at the park or somebody's backyard. And as I've gotten older, I just feel like I'm noticing with how society is in my life, in my world, is less and less of that. And it's so important and vital for our survival. We go from surviving to thriving when we're in a community that really is supportive, because we learn from each other, we support one another, and when you feel like you provide value to someone and someone gives you value too, it feels like that reciprocity. And I think earlier, Leti, you started the call by saying like walking shoulder to shoulder with people. And that's what we are meant to be in the world. And so thank you for presencing the importance of community and also the connection to love, who with God, who is unconditional with his love and support for you. So I love that.
You muted yourself, Margarita.
I was just asking if there was anything that's coming up for you.
Yeah. Also, Leti, that's such a gorgeous acronym. I'm obsessed. I immediately just texted that to my buddy from PhD because she did her thesis on trust, and I know she's gonna love that. So there's 4 things that are popping up as ways to come home to me. This prayer that I've been saying recently, it's called the Change Me prayer, from a really great book called It's Not Your Money, which is a really, really great book about giving the my over to God. So change me into one who can fully love, forgive, and accept myself so I can carry your light without restriction. Let everything that needs go, go. Let everything that needs to come, come. I'm utterly your own. So that's a prayer that I have been saying a lot, and just without even reading it from the book, just saying, change me into so-and-so, change me into so-and-so, and just instead of going into self beat up, which is kind of a up till now has been a familiar sidekick for me, self beat up, to instead go the route of self-compassion, which is change me into the one who follows through on things, change me into the one who has ease instead of angst, and just doing that inner alchemy. Speaking of the inner alchemy, my painting process, because Margarita asked me about it. So I like to take an emotion that feels really bulky to me. So an example was when I was going through my divorce. There was this feeling of like I'm going into liquefaction mode. Like I'm just going to be totally dissolving, and I have no idea whether I'm going to keep my house or whether I'm going to stay in this state or how much I'm going to have to pay for lawyer. Like it was just so beyond my control, it felt. And it felt like liquefaction. And I came across this analogy of a caterpillar who liquefies in a cocoon. So I painted this painting, and it allows me to really, like we say, I'm sure everyone's heard it, like feel it to heal. No, feel it to heal it. So to really expand that feeling and create space, like hours, maybe, however long that painting takes, to really feel it, so that when I'm complete with that painting, it feels like I've transmuted that feeling and I've like put it into something. It turns out to be a really beautiful painting, and you wouldn't really be able to tell that there's like so much grief that's been alchemized in that, but also there's signs in it. There's signs that there's like sharp thorns that are coming toward this woman who's in a cocoon. Like you can tell that it was that experience, but you can't tell the depth of feelings that I was drawing forward out of me, because I always put hopeful messages also into my paintings. My name means hope in Russian. And so I put like prisms of light all around it just to constantly remind myself as I'm going through this alchemical process that there are guides, there are loved ones. Like I'm always putting that around just to remind myself that as I'm going through this dense thing, there's just a lot of light. And I love what Claudia was saying about checking in with the light that I am and reminding myself I'm not alone. I also like this process of opening a magazine, and I like to write a question and then open a magazine and find an answer. And I find that that abstract processing really allows me to see into blind spots of like, oh, I totally forgot that that was a thing. And it just opens up that abstract world that I really love. So those are three things that that came up.
That's what I'm
I must say, I love your awareness and how intentional you are. A lot of really great techniques that you have that you've put in place. And you brought up something about the self-beat being one of your limiting beliefs, which kind of leads us into our next question. If there's anybody that wants to share anything that came up in this discussion, I would love for you to chime in. Any extra tidbits and maybe aha moments or awarenesses that came up for you?
I'll tell you something I'm going to add to my repertoire. Thank you, Nadja. Is it Nadia? Nadia.
Nadya, Nadya is how it's pronounced.
Nadia, thank you. Nadia, the abstract, that way of, you said opening a magazine and then being like you just have this sort of way to abstractly to feel. Is that what it is? To feel or to express yourself and how you're feeling spontaneously, but as you said, like this vehicle of taking it outside yourself and really expanding on your creativity.
Yeah, I forgot to say that I kind of do it like it's a journey. So I'll ask a question that will be the first step of the journey, and then I'll cut out an answer that I find in a magazine or something like that. And then that will prompt another question. So I lead myself through question after question. I don't even know what the next question's going to be because I don't know what the next answer is going to be. But through that process, I find myself in a place where I have clarity and certainly awareness of what's going on within. And it's that awareness that really gives me a lot of peace.
It's like oracle reading,
Yeah.
like alchemic oracle reading.
Yeah.
It's lovely.
Can I add on to that? Because I feel like I would you mind if I spoke, Margarita? So because I went first, I may have missed the mark on like what the question was actually asking. Can you repeat what the question was for that particular segment?
Yeah, it was about where did it go? What were the first things you did to reconnect with your true self?
Okay. So I just want to kind of take what everybody had said because I feel like what you had started with saying with the community, like developing community, we're actually in the process of doing that right now by sharing with each other, coming together and exchanging our stories and how they're all really very, very similar with everything, all our journeys have been different, but yet they're all the same. So I just want to kind of tack on like the experience of meditation and prayer. And with dancing, when I'm dancing, I use that as Zen. When I'm dancing is my total stillness. It's crazy to think like the dichotomy of like when I'm in full motion, moving, shaking, shimmying, sweating, that's where I actually feel like the most still and calm and fully present. So that's kind of like my form of meditation. And I do prayer, with mindful meditation in the mornings and stuff. But I love that Nadia was talking about her process of painting and how she uses so that's magic. That's practicing magic when you ask a question and then you put it into she was saying, the abstract, to get answers. That's like tarot card reading. That's like asking the
Yeah.
divine. It's like prayer. It's asking the divine for answers, for
Hmm.
guidance, trust the process, and then to turn that into creation. You're getting information from the creator, from your source, to transmute it into creating for others, whether it's community or entertainment or art or education. We're all getting um, our information from our source, and then we're giving it back out to the world, and in nature, and being in nature, like she was saying, like experiencing the divine through mother nature, through creation, through the moon, through the sun, through the stars, through the planets, the trees, the birds, very connected to all of that. So yeah. So thank you for letting me share, kind of like come back around, because I went first. I felt like, did I miss the mark on what we were trying to like get there? So thank you,
No, I love
everybody.
how you beautifully wrapped it together. And
Yeah.
like, I realized that I am also practicing magic in the way that I show up in my life. And a lot of the times when I do these calls, the first thing that I do is that I connect to God and I say, and to my guides, all my benevolent angels, and I say, I trust and surrender to you downloading and giving me exactly the words and the wisdom that is going to serve the highest good of everyone. And, that is also not knowing, but just trusting that the words and the wisdom will come if I'm just present and trust and being in that space. So thank you for sharing that. It's so important, because, this is the importance of having a conversation. Because there, like you said, Fancy, it's like, it's the same, different journey, but the same, like different story, same journey. Like we're all going to this, the same, and we're all just trying to collect those parts of ourselves that, that are still out there, And so I visualize sometimes even cutting cords and calling my power back to me. It's like doing like incantations and activations. And I believe in light codes, and I believe that words have the power to heal. Words have the so powerful in manifesting and creating your reality. So it's so important to be, um, like earlier, Nadja said, up until now, right? Because we don't want to say we're stuck in this story forever. Up until now, this has been my story, and it gives, it doesn't solidify that limiting belief in your concrete, moving it forward. It's like, up until now, I've been in this space, and I know I'm evolving, and I know that I'm always ever changing. So it's so important to be conscious about the words that we think, the words that we say, that because they do have power to manifest. And
I'm
I,
just
I hear,
laughing because sorry, I'm just laughing because I just gave a talk on exactly this topic at a conference about empowerment through inclusive language, and this is the line that we should all know that our words hold a lot of power. And then you're saying that, you see, it's just all these beautiful synchronicities. We have to just notice them.
yes, spirit and God is always speaking through you, to you, and from other experiences. If we just are open to receiving the messages, we will hear just how divinely timed and synchronicities. When you're really in the path of speaking truth, I really feel that happens even more consistently. Um,
My hawk just flew by the way. I have hawks in my canyon where I live,
Yeah.
and I commune with my animal spirits. I use animal medicine, and right when
Mhm.
when we were all sharing, right after I spoke, my hawk flew right by my window and was screeching right by my window.
Wow.
So whenever I see her or hear her, I know it's like, oh, that it just gives me the
confirmation.
yeah, just like wow, we're like it's yeah. So that presence of just yeah. Woo.
And I want to
Sorry,
say you're
share
so,
that.
yes, Fancy, you're so powerful in the way that you share your truths because I have now taken that on as my guidance. My spirit animals are always showing me something and just be I get to be aware of what I was just thinking or asking. And then, I'll come home or I look on my phone and it's like, what does this, raccoon medicine mean? Even I came across a skunk one night and I was like really in deep thought. And so it really is like a beautiful, beautiful way to just have that white magic working for you. There's always, always guidance if we just take the time to be still and receive. I think receiving is a really hard thing for me. It was really hard for me to receive love, receive, that because I didn't feel worthy. So it's one of the things that I am currently working on. It's just really being open to receive the gifts that I get every day, even if it's something that doesn't feel good in the moment. There's still a gift there. So with that said, life happens, right? And there are still lessons and real-time challenges that keep coming. So what is one limiting belief or pattern that you're currently working on to release? So there's always a limiting pattern or a belief that we are currently in. And there's always a next level, right? There's always, when you have an acknowledgement of one belief or one pattern, there's another one that shows up. And it's because you were ready to finally move forward. So what does that look like for you in this moment? What are you currently working on?
Mine is going from angst to ease. That the thermostat of angst is no longer serving me, and that it's been allowed to be here for too long, and I am consistently shifting that to ease. And in the same thread, it's going from pretending not to know to what do I know? Like, what if I did know? Pretending to know. And it's not that I need to know everything, but the angst comes from like an open-ended kind of existential questioning thing. And I'm coming home to myself um, in the peace that comes um, from knowing something and knowing that I am living in purpose and knowing that I am connected and aligned, even if it doesn't feel that way. And kind of just closing those open loops is what I'm shifting inside myself right now.
Powerful. Go ahead, Fancy.
Yeah, so my limiting beliefs have always been around money and how I view um what I deserve or how I feel about money. So that's always been my limiting belief because I grew up in a single mom household. My mom struggled a lot when I was younger to keep us from moving into a trailer park. So I was very like, I was brought up with the limiting belief of everything's too expensive. We don't have enough with a lack mindset, essentially. So that is what I'm working with very consciously for the last like 6 months, especially since I was kind of like a kept woman. I allowed myself to be supported financially by my partner who used that as a form of abuse. So I was dealing with like financial abuse in that relationship. So now I'm changing my limiting beliefs and I've already changed it. So I have my own place. I got a job. I'm still working as a belly dancer. So I'm changing my limiting belief around how I grew up with this lack mindset and my relationship with money. And now I live in a total different space. Like I literally quantum leapt into a new reality when I left that abusive situation and how that all kind of imploded. And I kind of look at it as like I'm a phoenix rising from the ashes because I literally had to go through this wildfire shit excuse my French, in LA and I'm literally, I have uh, risen into a totally different mindset of prosperity, abundance, wealth, and health in how I look my relationship with money, what's already here and what's coming to me and what I already have and have done and accomplished. So I kind of yeah, I've been really experiencing a lot of joy around changing my limiting belief around money, wealth, and prosperity and what I feel like I deserve and what I'm worthy of. So that's huge for me.
Oh, it's so lovely.
So powerful.
Good. We're all phoenixes.
Rising. Yeah.
It is
How you said
beautiful.
that you've already changed it. The moment you said it's already changed, it felt like it, and the joy that comes from it's already done. It's just such a shift between it's already done, and I get to enjoy that rather than this is a slog, and it's a long road ahead and all that stuff. Like you're already in the joy of it.
Yeah. Yeah, so and I don't really know where like I kind of am in that space where I don't really know how I'm going to do it all, but I know it's already there. Like I just have that
Yeah.
faith that it's already happened, it's already happening, and I'm just grateful, that I know I have that like deep, deep, deep inner like it's already happened. It's happening for me, not to me.
And it's so visible on your face when you say that as well. You get like a little smile and and it's like Nadia said, love for love, through love, not for love.
Yeah.
For us, so through us. It's so nice.
Yeah, I think for me, similarly, Fancy, is this faith, right? Like just stepping into faith like never before. That's really, I'd say the limitation had been, the story of fear or not knowing or needing clarity or unsure, right? And realizing that it really is about me believing bigger and believing in me and that knowingness, that intention, the living from vision and identity, right? So it's like that for me is this beautiful place of wow, it's like, yes, I get to live with this reality for the rest of my life. Like, how expansive is that, right? I literally feel like I've gone from this place of, oh, yeah, little faith, right? Little faith, and still doubt, still playing with, well, I don't know whether I have the education or the experience or whatever it is. It's just really stepping in with more authority because I have faith in that whatever promise, call, vision that I've been equipped to carry it out, right? So it's really that faith over fear and yeah, just like realizing that, it is a choice and I will always choose faith and always look at okay, where's this and what's the opportunity here in whatever challenge comes that I get to lean in and say, am I going to choose fear or am I going to choose faith? And so yeah, I think for me it really like that is the everyday invitation, faith over fear, and all that comes, the power that comes with that is has consistently been this journey of like my walk with my creator, right? Like I get to live into the purpose of my life with 100% commitment because it's possible. And what happens between my ears gets to be checked. But truly to live like if that's the greatest gift that I feel life has taught me is everything's an opportunity to believe bigger and to be, 100% just trusting that, I have a unique purpose, and I get to be a part of some amazing work in people's lives and help, so I'm just yeah, bold faith, big faith. That's where I'm living these days.
Do you have an acronym for faith?
Oh, I haven't really thought about it. Let me get back to you, Nadja.
Okay.
Fear and intuition take honesty.
I like
A
that
good
one.
one.
Love it.
But fear and faith, they're the same difference. It's believing in something that doesn't exist or isn't here yet. It's so
Yeah.
lovely.
Yeah, I definitely love that faith over fear. And just getting back to the trusting and surrendering that you are always divinely guided, and there's like perfect timing for everything. You just got to trust. And then that's why the hawk medicine for me is so beautiful, or like even the crows when I see them a lot here. It's just having a bird's eye view of things, like just span out. We get so focused sometimes on like having this, like, why fix this problem? I can't find a solution. But it's like if you just step back a little bit and look at higher at the bigger picture, you really start to see how things and why things are aligning the way that they are. Just having patience and sitting back and surrendering to that. Did everybody get to share their limiting belief? I don't know, Claudia, did you get to?
Yeah, I think more with my work through limiting belief clearance as well. When I realized that my limiting beliefs were my limiting beliefs, because I always believed, like you said, Nancy, that they were around money and love and worth and self-worth. And so love and money is the same difference as well. We're talking about our value and our value system and our personal worth, etc. But then I realized that so for me it's this movement from fight to flight, basically. And it took me a long time to learn the art of surrender, to learn the art of forgiveness, including self-forgiveness. And I always said, my biggest weakness is that I'm very unforgiving, and it took me a long time to learn forgiveness and surrender. Now I have, and it's here, and I even have it on a card to remind me that when I feel like I want to fight for something, or I'm digging my heels in or something, I just ask myself, how important is this to me, really? Is this worth my energy? Is this worth fighting for? And this could be something really simple, like, is this worth me giving my energy to, or giving my power away to? So how important is this to me right now? And how satisfied am I with this right now? And if I'm not satisfied with it, then maybe it's worth me investing that energy. If not, fly away, let it go. So it's that fight it or fly away. And this is kind of where I am now with my own personal challenge, because I'm, I was always somebody who wanted to fight for the cause and fight for this. And somebody's like, well, I can put my energy elsewhere. So, and as I took my focus away from the value things, actually the value things don't matter so much anymore. I think, like you said, Fancy, you realize it's all here, and oh, I have it. It's okay. So yeah, that's mine, from fight to flight. Thank you.
Just like me. Yeah, I think one of my biggest ones still working on is the limiting belief around money. it's hard, or, it's evil, or it's changes you, and all these things that you hear that you grew up with, and you don't realize that you take them on as your truths. It's like a programming. And so, yeah, in my experience, a lot of our limiting beliefs come from other people's limiting beliefs, and we take them on as ours. And so that's why it feels so interesting when you're like, why isn't my life and why isn't it working? Well, like, you're not being authentic with who you are, like your true worth and value. It's like you matter just by existing. You were a miracle. Like, if you actually know what it takes for an egg to get fertilized, like it's like literally a miracle that you are born, like even in that moment of conception, get created. Um, so like that alone makes you worthy and magical. Um, so just we get to just stand and sit in that, knowing that God put you here because you had a divine reason, right? A purpose, a mission. And I think with that, it leads us to the next question about wisdom and inspiration. Like, what would you say to another woman or girl who feels stuck, lost, or unsure of who she is? What would be a wisdom or inspiration that you can guide to help them see themselves?
I would say there's teaching about intuition and understanding to listen to that voice inside of you, because we all have it. We're born with it. It's there. And really getting to a place of quiet enough where you can really listen to yourself and understanding what intuition or gut feeling or whatever you want to call it, or like a young girl. Like, I definitely have had this conversation with my daughter. She's 16, and I told her, as our family has kind of blown into a different reality, that she's making choices now that she has to be, I always tell her, make good choices. And she asked me, like, well, how do you make good choices? And I was like, well, I listen to my gut. And a lot of times I've ignored it, and it's led to a lot of bad decision making on my part. So if you can really just get clear and listen, real just quiet, and listen to that voice inside of you, that voice will guide you to make the right choices. And it might hurt. It might lead you to a place where you're going to have to make a mistake or go through something that's going to bring you pain. But with every choice you make, you're going to have an opportunity to learn and grow and become who you really are. So listen to yourself before you listen to everybody else. That's what I would say.
I would say exactly that, like fully exactly that. And I would also say that that voice is divine and you are divine. And the divine God, whatever you want to call it, is benevolent, and that you get to prove to yourself over and over the benevolence and the innocence that you are as a divine being.
Yes.
Wow. Oh my goodness. So all of that and elevating what you're saying, or at least, sharing that they do, it's like my young adult, like my young self, right? I get to say to myself, be encouraged. Look for the lesson in the mistakes. Befriend failure, like get curious. And lastly, which is, this exponential season in my life, choose faith over fear all the time. Because sometimes people used to say, like, fear it's false, right? But you feel it. So I love this other orientation, that fear, Here's an acronym, Nadja. Face everything and rise. It's not false evidence appearing real, right? I think that's what it was very commonplace, but we really get to befriend it. Right? So like face it and rise, right? Face everything and rise. And why do you choose faith? Why do you get to rise in faith? Because faith always invites total hope. It really does. Nothing stays the same when you have faith. Nothing stays the same. That's my heart song.
I love that you came up with the acronym for Faith for Us. Can you say
Yeah.
it again?
Just
I wanted to ground.
because it was invited.
Yes. Say it again. I wanted it to ground because you snuck it in there.
I did. Faith always invites total hope.
I love that.
It'll change everything.
I love that. I love befriending the failure. I think up until now, that has been a big one of mine is fear of failure, fear of failing, and it stopped me. I feel like there are times that it still kind of stops me. But befriending it and just looking for the lesson in the mistake gives so much power back to you.
Mhm.
Yeah.
But
So
there's
that's
another acronym because fail is the first attempt at learning, or the first attempt in learning, whatever way you want to put it, but to fail is your first attempt in learning. So
I'm going to write a book
yeah.
that has a bunch of acronyms.
We're just going to have an acronym book. Yes, we love acronyms. I love all of these, and I think for somebody who may not quite be on that pathway yet, or may not have that strength, or cannot see their light yet, and I think for many young women, they're struggling to find their light the same as we are. But I always live in the hope that these generations coming up now are much, their eyes are much wider opening, and we're in a big state of awakening at the moment. But I think it's just about being your authentic self. And basically, the best piece of advice I ever heard was, what somebody else thinks of you is none of your business. So what other people think of me is none of my business. And that's not always easy to accept, but it's like, your problem is your problem. If you have a problem with me, it's your problem, but I am being. So, of course, so long as you're not hurting anybody or doing any harm to anybody else, but essentially just be authentic, be true to yourself, speak your truth, live in your truth, and what other people think of that is none of your business.
Yes. Let that shit go.
Yeah. I don't believe in regrets, but this is something that I wish I'd known earlier. I wish I knew that when I was 25.
Yeah,
So,
and
yeah.
I think what came up for me with everybody's shares too is in that fear of being judged or, like what other people think about you. I say it all the time, Claudia. So thank you for presence. I do say that to myself. I say what other people, and I remind myself what other people think of me is none of my business because really it's just a projection,
Mm-hmm.
right? I'm showing up in a way that opens us a wound in them somehow, maybe, or a part of themselves they're not willing to accept or see, or it's a belief or a judgment that they already have, then it has nothing to do with me, right?
Mm-hmm.
So just reminding myself of that, I also call back my power because I dimmed my light so much because I was worried what other people would think. And I'm always the one that's stirring the pot because I do speak authentically. I am honest about things. And I feel like if we were all more honest with one another, with our friends and family and the coworkers, we would give them the space to evolve, to be their true self.
Mm-hmm.
I think we are so worried about people pleasing and holding people small and not like being like, hey, I see the light. I'm not enrolled in your smallness. I'm not enrolled in you dimming your light for anybody, right? And I think if we just all stood in that power of being, I am not trying to stir the pot. I'm really just saying, I'm not enrolled in you being playing small right now. Like, you're much better than that. Like, let's rise together. And I think the more we can be that for one another, the more that we will evolve much quicker in our truth of who we are and our light and why we were brought here, right? So being that permission.
It's beautiful. But the
Yeah.
caveat then again, I guess, is to accept the compliments though. So when other people say something nice, accept that. So ignore the bad stuff, let the shit go. When someone says something nice, thank you. I'll take that. Yeah.
Yeah, right back to the receiving. Yeah, receiving is really hard for some people.
And we're all mirrors for each other too. I mean, we're all kind of reflecting back and forth to each other. Like you're seeing yourself in them, they're seeing themselves in you, and you're bringing things out in each other that there's a reason why you're reflecting with this person. They need you to see something, you need them to see something, they need to see it within themselves through you, so interpersonal relationships that are difficult, or you're struggling with a block with somebody, it's like there's something to look at there within you too. Like, what are they showing you about yourself? What do you have to work through? Or why is that person triggering me so much that I get angry or frustrated or isolated, whatever it is like, so then you get the opportunity to grow through that lens, through that reflection of like, okay, so this person is reflecting something back to me, and I may not have to own it, but I can use it as a way to navigate something that might be difficult for me to see on my own, like within myself, and that's what we're all here really to do when we're together, when we're with each other, is to really just reflect like our light back and forth to each other, and sometimes it's really bright, sometimes it's really dim, sometimes it's just barely even there, but we're really, really supposed to just like, we're here to crack each other open, really, like I've been really thinking about that. I had a squirrel come over to me the other day. I stepped outside my love's door, and the squirrel was right there, and she was standing up on her legs like this with her little hind feet, like she wanted something. She almost jumped up on my leg, and my love went back into the house and got a bag of pistachio nuts, and he threw them on the ground. And I was just thinking about it, and I was like, I don't think they like pistachios, because I've tried to feed squirrels pistachio nuts. And she took it, and she was looking at it, and she threw it down and got another one, threw it down, and she just walked away. And meanwhile, my love is behind me. I was recording it, and I listened to it later, and he was saying he needs to learn how to crack it open. He needs to learn how to crack it open. And I was just, and that just made me like, that whole like cracking it open. Like, I'm like, oh my gosh, it's such a great analogy. Like, we're all really here to like figure out how to crack that, with who you're interacting with, how to like get that, crack it open. You're given a nut, now you have to figure out how to open it.
Build the
Yeah,
crack of love.
Yeah, exactly. It always is with love. Yeah.
and it's through the cracks that we let our light shine
Yeah,
through.
but sometimes you need to put a little pressure on it, right? Or you break a nail fucking trying to get it open. It's like sometimes, it's like, yeah, you use love, but sometimes you need other tools,
Yeah.
Diamonds are made under a lot of pressure, like all those
Wow.
analogies, when you
Mhm.
think about it. So just getting back to like understanding our, listening to where we're coming from especially when we're interacting with other people, so when you were talking about like, what would you say to another woman or a young girl, it's like, what would you say to anybody in any kind of relationship or, when you're in a conversation with them. Yeah.
Yeah, what I loved resonated with me is those triggers, the things that upset us, like it's God's way of nudging and saying, this is where you get to grow, right? Here's a limiting belief. Here's your own self-judgment. Maybe you haven't given yourself the love or the compassion or the grace to be in failure, to be in fear, that it has to mean something bad about you. And I think that's where I was standing for a long time, is thinking, like, why did I feel that I had all these aha moments and all these beautiful breakthroughs, but I kept coming back to the same pattern? Right. And it was because how I do one thing is how I do everything. So it was like, how is it showing up for that lesson that kept, like, I think somebody said it earlier about lessons keep coming and coming to you until you learn the lesson, until you're able to just reinvent. And sometimes I was like holding it like this, like a little far. It's like, hey, you get too close, like, it doesn't feel good. But like just allowing it to be and having that inner knowing that it's for my better, for my best, for my growth, for my evolution. And a lot of times, having a coach and a mentor or other discussions like this, or even, when you're working a program, being able to just kind of discuss it and put it out there doesn't give it as much power anymore.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think it's important because a lot of people don't see that, especially young people. And you can say, there are lessons in this, and you can't see that the lesson, and these repeated patterns. And okay, maybe start seeing the patterns, but don't start learning the lesson. Don't accept it as it being a lesson. So this is where coaches come in to help people, I guess, or situations like this, or communities like Leti mentioned and you mentioned, and you've created great communities, Margarita, as well. So, big thank you to that. So I think community, we need to find our tribe. Tribes,
Yeah.
not just one.
There is there's always a gift in a disaster, or a breakup or a divorce or there's always like a gift there. And I just want to presence this story that I heard when I was volunteering at the recovery center during the fires. I was up in Pasadena, and there was a woman there who lost her everything. Like they had this app where you can put in your address, and it shows pictures of your home, and whether it's completely gone, or so people are like for the first time seeing where how their house is. And this woman just lost everything, and she, in the hurry of leaving her house, she forgot to take her contact lenses with her. And I love how community comes together and just starts giving their services away for free. It was so humbling to see just how many people came together. And so they offered her a free eye exam so they could fit her for her prescription. And it turned out that she had a torn cornea or something, that if she hadn't come in, and they're like, if she hadn't come in, she would have lost her eyesight, because she would have just been going and doing what she does every day, just putting in her contacts every day, like nothing. But there was something about, like, they found out that she had something with her eyes, and they went and they offered her free surgery. And it was in the surgery that they found out how severe it was, that in days she could have lost her eyesight completely. So there's miracles in the mess. And I think when we can just stop and say, how is this serving me, is the first line of action that we could take, is just pausing, reflecting, and being like, how is this serving me in this moment? And it might not come in that moment, it might come in a week or in a year, but there's always a blessing that comes with things like that. And it's just trusting and surrendering that there was a higher, better thing for you that is more aligned when you choose you, when you trust your intuition, when you trust your inner guidance, and the wisdom that comes from your guides that are always showing you signs when you're asking. And so with that, like the soul reflection, I think we kind of already spoke a little bit about it, but in one word, what does coming home to you feel like in this moment right now?
Peaceful.
Receptive.
Abundant.
Remembering.
For me, I would say freedom. I believe freedom is on the other side of fear. I know we were talking a lot about fear and failure, but like I feel like your freedom is on the other side of fear. If you just step forward a little bit instead of stopping yourself where you come short, there's a pattern. Like my pattern is like a 2 week pattern. I get all excited about something, and then there's something that comes up that either gives me fear or like some friction. And instead of like pushing forward and going, what is here that serves me? I recoil and I play small again, and then I repeat the pattern. So it's like my freedom is literally on the other side of that moment. And if we can just trust in that moment, we will be in our next evolution. All right. So in our as we wrap up this call, I wanted to invite you all to share a message or an affirmation or a prayer that comes up organically for you. If you don't have anything, it's fine. It was just kind of like what you think the women who are watching right now are ready to do so that so a prayer or whatever for the women who are watching this who are ready to rise in their greatness. Is there anything? I love, Nadia, what you read in that book, the affirmations that you do. So for me, I guess I would say like freedom is on the other side of fear. That would be like the mantra. Like freedom is on the other side of fear. Like just stand in that. All right. Anybody else?
I would say let go and let goddess. That's been my prayer, my morning every time, every day. Let go, let goddess.
Goddess.
Yeah.
And I love this prayer. It's in a book in the Bible. And it's just a simple blessing, but it's so powerful. So I want to leave our listeners, and especially with thinking about our next generation. May the Lord bless you and keep you. May the Lord make his face shine upon you and be gracious to you. May the Lord turn his face toward you and give you peace.
And mine would be, which is from Ho'oponopono, which is thank you, I love you, I forgive myself.
I have two. One is what I wrote during this call. To live with full faith and trust is joy.
Mm.
And the other, actually, believe it or not, I wrote that before the call. I was just coloring it in during the call. I just realized that at this moment. And the other one is move from love versus for love.
Yay.
Mm.
Thank you so much, everyone, for sharing your hearts, your wisdom, and your joy and your heartfelt, vulnerable stories today. It was such a beautiful reminder that we're not alone. You know, we're not alone in this journey of remembering and reclaiming and rising as women, as community members, as mothers, as daughters, as mentors or coaches and teachers. It's so beautiful to see that when we do open up a space like this, how alike we are in our journey and in our fears and in our, the things that stop us or the things that inspire us. So coming home to you is definitely not a destination. It's a devotion. It's a devotion to you, to your truth, to your love, to your authenticity, to your power and your light. And it's about choosing yourself over and over again and again and again, however many times it takes. Because it's going to get messy. Even when it is messy, it's beautiful because it's in the messiness that we find our message. and our purpose.
I love that.
So I want to leave this space today with a little more grace for our purpose here together, a little more softness in our hearts, and a little deeper connection with who we truly are in the world. So to every woman listening here, I just want to say your story matters. You matter. You're enough. And your healing is so sacred. And it's important because your light is needed in the world. And there was a couple things that I want to just tie in everything that was talked about today that was so important to bring forward is knowing that you're the only one, the only constant that has your back. No one's going to have your back like you have your back. And remembering that authenticity is a superpower. To choose faith over fear. To listen to your inner voice, that divine wisdom, that intuition, that gut feeling, because it's always there to serve you, your highest good. To have conscious intention about what you're doing and allow yourself to be cracked wide open. Because we are love. You just get to trust and surrender into that. So checking in with the light that you are, instead of always seeing the downfalls and the mistakes, like checking in with that light that you are, that love that you are, that power and divine goddess that you are, and acknowledging your strengths. Because everything in this opportunity, everything is an opportunity to believe bigger. And in thinking too, like, is this worthy of my attention? Is this worthy of me giving away my power? Ask yourself that when something comes up. Like, is this even worth it? For me to dim my light, to hide my place small and hide my truths? And so being cautious about looking for that lesson in the mistake. And white light is healing. You are a healer. You are a light. And your thoughts and your words matter in creating your story and creating your experiences. So be mindful of that. So until next time, just keep coming home to you. You have my permission.
Thank
You have all
you.
of our permission.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Love you all.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you for sharing this wisdom with one another, with me. And thank you for doing all of the work to come home to you so that I can remember.
Yes,
Thank you for the opportunity to share and for all of your stories. They're uplifting and inspirational. And thank you, Margarita, for the invitation and for creating this container.
Thank you. My heart is full. I feel really humbled in your presence and in your light. And remember, you can ground yourself. Go in nature, hug a tree, go barefoot. Look to see what animal wisdom and spirit guides our messages are there for you today. You're never alone. I love you all. Thank you.
Love you, girl.
Bye,
Thank
everyone.
you.